Thanks so much. And thanks to all the journalists for boycotting Woolworths. We appreciate your support in the campaign. But friends, my job is to mention two things. One is to provide context to the campaign, and secondly, the actions that BDS South Africa will be partaking in. Firstly, the boycott against Woolworths and the boycott against Israel is not a malicious boycott. It's not to punish either Woolworths or Israel. The origins of the boycott come in 2005. With the increasing occupation and with the increasing oppression of the Palestinian people, the largest, broadest, and most representative grouping of Palestinian civil society in 2005 gathered in Ramallah, in Palestine, and issued a call to the international community, inspired by the successful boycott of apartheid South Africa, for a program of boycott, divestment, and sanctions, what is today commonly known as BDS, to be applied against Israel until Israel meets international law and respects human rights. It's a very clear call that was made by the Palestinians to those in the international community who claim to be in support and to claim to be in solidarity to adhere to. Over the this was issued in 2005, and it's just been about 9 years. And some movements within that campaign is that, firstly, there is a growing number of Jewish Israelis that have come out backing the campaign. Although it is illegal for Jewish organizations to back the boycott of Israel, Israel has outlawed this. There are an increasing number of Jewish Israelis that are coming out in the individual capacities supporting the boycott. But the movement is not just a symbolic boycott. We're also achieving major and significant victories. We have, for example, the Norwegian Pension Fund. We have the Dutch Pension Fund. We have Danske Bank that has blacklisted Israeli banks. We have the Supernova Fund in New Zealand and various other pension funds that have all divested from Israel. We have 17 European Union countries that have issued an official warning to all businesses not to trade with Israeli settlement companies or with companies, international companies, involved or having any relations with the Israeli settlements or in the occupied Palestinian territories. As journalists here know, the University of Johannesburg became one of the first universities to terminate its relationship with Israel in 2011. Subsequently, we have various university structures, mostly in the US and in Western Europe, that have adopted a boycott of Israel position. So the movement is moving, and it's moving at a supersonic speed. Here in South Africa, we've had a look at all the South African retailers as BDS South Africa and our partner organizations. And almost all South African retailers do have a relationship with Israel, a very small and inconsequential relationship. Most of the relations come from the apartheid era, where Israel and apartheid South Africa had this good relationship. I mean, Israel was, after all, apartheid South Africa's last friend, as isolation took grip on and around apartheid South Africa. So we had to look at all the companies, and we decided to launch a campaign around Woolworths because Woolworths claims to have this ethical image and claims to source responsibly. And we really thought that Woolworths would have done the right thing by now, and Woolworths would have terminated that relationship with Israel. Woolworths would have sourced those products that it's currently sourcing from other markets, firstly from local markets, alternatively from the African continent, or finally from countries that are friendly to South Africa, unlike the state of Israel. Unfortunately, Woolworths, it would seem, is actively choosing to be on the wrong side of history, actively choosing to defend its Israeli trade relations. And really, we don't have a grievance with the tomato or the avocado or the cucumber. They've done no crime to us. We have a problem with the Israeli trade links. It's the Israeli trade relationship that Woolworths is maintaining. So whether in this season they're only importing mangoes and pomegranate is actually irrelevant to us. It's about those trade relationships worth over 12 million rands that we are concerned by. So BDS South Africa has launched various forms of activism in this campaign, and we've now resorted to shareholder activism. And we decided, and we were inspired by the anti-apartheid movement of the 1980s. As many South Africans know, our freedom came because activists and young people, students and others, went to the AGMs of Barclays Bank, of Polaroid, of Caterpillar, of IBM, and various other international companies that had relations with apartheid South Africa. And we really are going to be going to the AGM next week. BDS South Africa has bought several shares for various of our members and supporters, and we all intend to be at that AGM to raise these pertinent ethical issues, which we would have hoped that the leadership of Woolworths would have raised by now. Woolworths is taking the position of wanting to wish away this story, of wanting to wish away this campaign, of wanting to ignore this campaign, to stick their heads in the sand. But unfortunately, they don't realize that BDS South Africa in this campaign is just one of many organizations that have called and are supporting and advancing the boycott of Woolworths. So they've launched a court application. They've launched a court application against BDS South Africa as an organization. But firstly, we are going to be fighting that because we don't think it's correct for a corporate like Woolworths to be using this intimidating tactics of wanting to silence activism. Woolworths could easily have accepted the various requests, and this is something we are going to raise at the AGM. They could have simply have accepted the various and numerous requests that BDS South Africa and our partners have been making consistently for the last 3 months to sit around a table and to resolve this issue. Woolworths has refused to do so. So these are some of the issues that we will be raising, but we are confident that regardless of the court case, that this campaign has already taken root in South Africa, it has taken root within our partner organizations, and that this would be advanced regardless of BDS South Africa's court case or not. So whether Woolworths is trying to suppress us or not, that's not going to impact. Finally, friends, one of the other issues that we as shareholders are going to be raising at the upcoming AGM is that Woolworths claims to be apolitical and not wanting to take a decision in this. And our question is that what would Woolworths have said during the days of apartheid? If Woolworths was, say, for example, a London-based company or UK-based company that had a trade relationship with apartheid South Africa and was called on by the people of the UK to terminate relations with apartheid South Africa, will they have turned around and said, sorry, we're apolitical, we're going to maintain relations with apartheid South Africa? We would have expected Woolworths then, and we still expect Woolworths now, to have done the right thing and to have terminated those relations in order to contribute towards a peaceful solution then in the case of apartheid, in the case of South Africa, and now in the case of Israel and Palestine. And interestingly enough, the South African Jewish Board of Deputies on its website has a piece of information about the founder of Woolworths, who was a Jewish businessman, that actually supported and advanced a boycott of Nazi Germany. So it's in the DNA of this company to support boycotts, to support non-violent ways of sending a very clear message to rogue regimes. But I'd like to end off on a quote by Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Well, you know, Archbishop Desmond Tutu always used to ask when he traveled the world during the boycotts against South Africa, why is divesting always seen as a political move when investing is not seen as a political move? But Tutu has said that to remain neutral, what Woolworths is trying to do, to remain neutral in situations of injustice is to choose the side of the oppressor. And it seems, unfortunately, that this is what Woolworths is doing. And we're going to be at the shareholder AGM coming up on next week, the 26th, to make clear these views of BDS South Africa as well as the various partner organizations that have joined this campaign. Thanks so much.